The Treasury Secretary just committed perjury on camera and then lost a screaming match he started. Scott Bessent's House hearing today was supposed to be routine. Instead, it exposed three things the administration can't defend. The tariff policy is incoherent. The president's crypto corruption is documented. And the man in charge of the economy can't keep his own statement straight. What happened in that hearing room tells you everything about the state of this administration. Officials who know the policies don't work trying to defend them anyway and failing publicly. Let me show you how it started, because Bessent was immediately cornered on the most basic question about tariffs. So, one of the stated policy objectives, and we'll keep score. Okay, one of the stated policy objectives of the Trump tariffs is to bring back domestic production. Does the Trump administration regret imposing tariffs on goods that cannot be produced domestically at scale in the United States? Do you realize in hindsight that that was foolish? Do you realize that we use the leverage to bring down tariffs from other countries to take down non-tariff tariffs on bananas gave you leverage? Yes, with Colombia, with Brazil, I think, Congressman, you're being very naive with negotiating. We were promised reindustrialization. A tariff on bananas did not lead to domestic banana production. It simply made bananas more expensive for American businesses and consumers. The same of coffee, is negotiating in a more wholesome manner. Are you willing to commit to no longer imposing tariffs on any product that has neither a domestic substitute nor a national security rationale? That would be the definition of foolish in a negotiation. So you're willing to impose tariffs that make more expensive goods that we cannot domestically produce here in the United States again, and that have no what is the national security nexus of bananas and coffee? Again, why would you do that? That there are numerous things when you negotiate with Indonesia. There are things that are only made in Indonesia, but the Indonesians brought down their tariff barriers or non-tariff barriers. I get it. We have to make bananas great again. I get it. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. The gentleman from New York, M. The question was simple. Why is the administration imposing tariffs on products that cannot be produced domestically? Bananas, coffee, goods with no American substitute and no national security rationale. Bessent's defense was that tariffs create negotiating leverage, but when pressed on specifics, the logic collapsed. What leverage does a banana tariff create? The United States doesn't grow bananas at commercial scale. There's no domestic industry to protect. The tariff simply makes bananas more expensive for American consumers and businesses. When asked directly whether he would commit to removing tariffs on products with no domestic substitute and no security justification, Bessent refused. That refusal is significant. It means the administration's tariff policy isn't driven by economic strategy. It's driven by the fact that Donald Trump likes the word tariff because it sounds strong. This is the core problem. Economic policy built on aesthetics rather than analysis. The dollar has declined over 10% under this administration. Manufacturing employment has dropped, continuing a pattern documented under every Republican president in recent memory. The data contradicts every claim the administration makes about economic strength, but the tariff exchange was just the warm-up. The hearing escalated dramatically when a congressman raised the issue of World Liberty Financial. This is where it got ugly. Mr. Bess, as our nation's treasurer, I'm sure you also know that a foreign-linked investment firm tied to the U at the United Arab Emirates government quietly bought about half of the Trump family's crypto company, World Liberty Financial. And at the very same time, the President of the United States was dealing with that country on foreign policy. Now, Eric Trump, the president's son and co-founder of World Liberty Financial, said, and I quote, "I'm not going to get into who the investors are, but I've got some pretty meaningful investors." End of quote. Lack of transparency. And it didn't end there. When Trump fans brought the tokens, they thought they were getting the deal of a century. But what they didn't know was that only Trump and his sons had the sole power to decide who can sell the token and when. Today, the price of the token has fallen over 50%, and the Trump fans who brought the token are now begging to get out. Now, I'm not making this up. I'm not making this up. You can see it for yourself on the World Liberty Financial Discussion Forum. Yeah, yourself, Mr. Secretary. So this is no longer just about a shady crypto deal or a possible gift when a foreign-linked investor is putting hundreds of millions of dollars into a company controlled by the president's family, and at the same time, this president is conducting foreign policy with that country. You know what that causes or creates? It creates a national security concern. So, I'm not going to ask much of you, Mr. Secretary. I just want to know whether you will commit today to pause and heighten the scrutiny of any bank charter or licensing application at the OC connected to the World Liberty Financial until all of these conflicts of interest and foreign influence reviews are completed and shared with the United States Congress. All I need to know is, will you halt it and do a complete investigation and scrutiny of this licensing application? All you have to ask is yes or no. No, Congressman. All you have to ask, the OC is an independent entity, and I would know, Congressman. I take that as a no. You traveled to Venezuela? I take that as a no I take that as on behalf of your donor. Not want to answer that question. I take that as a note for $7 billion. I'm asking you to do your responsibility as Secretary of the Treasury. You do not expire, you witness. He's the one that went past your time, Mr. Chairman. He did not answer my question, and he wouldn't pass the time. He had 6 seconds left to try to answer your question, and it was a yes or no. It was a yes or no answer. I asked him, will he or was yes or no stop covering for the president? Yeah, well, stop being his flunky. Okay, and gentlemen, he's talking to me. I'm responding to the channel. Trip to Venezuela. Stop covering for the president. Don't be a work for the American people. Trip to Venezuela. Work for the American people. Don't be a cover-up for a mob. Maybe you're going to see, as long as he talks, recognize Mr. Bessent. Please let me break down what was presented in that exchange, because the facts are documented and they're damning. A foreign-linked investment firm tied to the United Arab Emirates government purchased approximately half of the Trump family's cryptocurrency company, World Liberty Financial. This purchase occurred while the president was conducting foreign policy negotiations with the UAE. Eric Trump, co-founder of World Liberty Financial, refused to disclose investors, saying only that he had pretty meaningful investors. The structure of the token gives Trump and his son sole authority to decide who can sell and when. Retail buyers, many of them Trump supporters, purchased tokens believing they were getting a valuable investment. The token has since lost over 50% of its value. Holders are now publicly begging to sell on the company's own discussion forums. When a foreign government-linked entity puts hundreds of millions of dollars into a company controlled by the president's family while that president is conducting diplomacy with that country, that's not just a conflict of interest. That's a national security concern. The congressman asked Bessent a straightforward question. Would he commit to pausing and heightening scrutiny of any bank charter or licensing application connected to World Liberty Financial until conflict of interest reviews are completed? Bessent's response was to deflect, claiming the OC is an independent entity. When pressed for a yes or no, the hearing devolved. Bessent attempted to pivot to the congressman's 2006 trip to Venezuela, a deflection so transparent it drew immediate backlash. The congressman's response was direct. Stop covering for the president. Work for the American people. The exchange revealed something important about Bessent's position. He's a reasonably accomplished financial professional trying to perform a role that requires combative mega energy he simply doesn't possess. Every Trump official is expected to project the same aggressive confrontational persona. Pete Hecht does it naturally, J.D. Vance does it with practiced smugness, but Bessent doesn't have it. He's a fund manager trying to be a political fighter. And the gap between performance and capability is painful to watch. That gap becomes dangerous when it intersects with actual policy consequences. Because Bessent isn't just performing badly on television, he's refusing to exercise oversight over documented corruption. Then came the moment that may have legal consequences about this. But did you write a letter to investors raising concerns about the impact of tariffs, writing that, quote, tariffs are inflationary? Did you say that at that time? Yes or no? No. Okay, thank you. Okay. We have a New York Times article that, agrees. New York Times. Then last summer, Bessent was asked directly whether he wrote a letter to investors stating that tariffs are inflationary. He said, No, the problem is the letter exists. It's been reported on. The New York Times has documented it. When the congressman referenced the Times reporting, Bessent attempted the standard dismissal. He scoffed at the mention of the New York Times as if that would make the letter disappear. This is potentially perjury. A cabinet official testifying under oath that he didn't write something he demonstrably did write. The letter contradicts his current public position that tariffs are beneficial. This is the pattern that defines the Trump administration's economic team. People who understand economics being forced to argue against their own expertise for political purposes. Bessent knows tariffs are inflationary. He wrote it to his investors when he was managing money, and his credibility depended on accuracy. Now his credibility depends on agreeing with Trump, so the analysis changes. The final exchange drove the point home. Interesting fact that every time you put a Republican in charge of, in the presidency, that two things have happened, that the dollar has gotten weaker and that manufacturing employment has dropped, and this has happened just, during every Republican president in our lifetime, and the reverse has happened. Every Democratic president, the dollar has strengthened, actually achieved your objective instead of just talking about it. And since the time of that, actually, I think this plot here was the one we had then when the dollar was only 8%. I think it's down about 10.5% now. So you're continuing down the traditional, I'm sorry, which index are you using the dollar? I think it's DXY year on year. Yeah. And I think it's the last time I looked at it was roughly 10 down 10.5%. The data presented was straightforward and devastating. Under every Republican president in recent memory, the dollar has weakened and manufacturing employment has declined. Under Democratic presidents, the reverse, the DXY dollar index is down roughly 10.5% under this administration. That's not opinion, that's market data. When presented with this, Bessent tried to question which index was being used, a stalling tactic from someone who knows exactly what the DXY is and what it shows. This is what happens when competent people are forced to defend incompetent policies. They resort to procedural deflection because substantive defense is impossible. Now let me put this hearing in broader context because it reveals something structural about how this administration functions. Every Trump cabinet member faces the same impossible task. They must simultaneously demonstrate loyalty through combative performance and defend policies that contradict their professional expertise. Some manage the performance better than others, but none of them can make the underlying numbers work because the policies aren't designed to produce good economic outcomes. They're designed to make Trump feel powerful. Tariffs on bananas exist because Trump likes tariffs. World Liberty Financial exists because Trump likes money. The perjury happened because the truth contradicts the required narrative. When officials can't defend the substance, they perform the style. And when the style doesn't work either, as we saw with Bessent today, the entire apparatus collapses into chaos. Here's what to watch in the coming weeks. Watch whether the perjury referral materializes. Bessent denied writing a letter that exists under oath. That has legal consequences, or it should. Watch World Liberty Financial. The token is down 50%. Retail investors are trapped. Foreign government money is documented. This is a corruption case with evidence in plain sight. Watch the tariff data. If the dollar continues declining and manufacturing employment doesn't recover, the administration's economic narrative becomes untenable. Bessent will face these questions again, and the numbers will be worse. Watch Bessent standing with Trump. Today's performance was exactly what Trump doesn't want. Weakness in a public confrontation, inability to own the libs, getting visibly outmatched by congressional Democrats. The broader pattern is clear. The administration is staffed with people who either can't do their jobs or won't defend the policies they're required to champion. Bessent isn't stupid. He's a financial professional who understands markets. But understanding markets and defending this administration's economic policies are fundamentally incompatible tasks. Today's hearing made that incompatibility visible. Under oath, on camera, in a screaming match, he lost. That's not a bad day. That's the structural reality of serving in an administration where loyalty to one man requires abandoning everything you know to be true. Subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. We're tracking every hearing, every contradiction, every moment these officials crack under pressure. Like this video, drop a comment with your thoughts on Bessent's meltdown. Share this with anyone who thinks this administration knows what it's doing with the economy. Keep fighting, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next